Hello everyone and welcome back to Space Engineers. I thought I'd do a bit of a webcam thing, so let me know how that goes with the video. Let me just make sure I'm on the right microphone. So it wasn't last time. Right. So if you're a long-term subscriber and I'm talking over a year ago, you will remember the Corvette sort of design choice, I think it was called, video, or you've just gone back and watched that video, then you'd remember how I went over, the role that a Corvette should serve in a fleet and how you should incorporate that into designing one. So we're going to go a step up today and, well, a step up to frigates, because you can have corvettes bigger than frigates, you can have frigates smaller. It's interchangeable, and it's very the classification scheme is very loosely based. There is no this is a frigate, this is a corvette. Get that out of your head, because that's not a thing. I see people making these tables where you can sort of judge it by the length of the ship and the volume. What the fuck's that about? It's got nothing to do with it. Whatever the creator has specified it as, that's what it is, because it's built for a specific purpose. They're not classified after they're built, they're classified as they're built. That's how shipbuilding works. So I've got an example of some frigates here, and then also on the far left and the far right I have examples that aren't frigates. So we're just gonna... Who's messaging me? Son off. We're just gonna go over some... we're gonna go over the frigates first. So I've chosen 4 frigates that go, to each corner of the frigate sort of classification. So the first one is the Providence by Lieutenant Starbound. I'm just going to turn on my signals here. The logistics frigate. So a frigate should have good manoeuvrability. It should be fast. The main thing is, the step up from a corvette, is if we have a look at this over here. This is the Falchion corvette. It has only interior turrets because they're quite good against fighters, because they're quite nippy, and you don't have to conveyor them up, so you can slap them everywhere. So you can have multiple on each side of the ship for 6 firing arcs for 6 fighters at once, if you know what I mean. Whereas frigates, they shouldn't be able to stand toe to toe with capital ships, but they should be able to do damage to capital ships. So we can see that reflected here. We have full missile turrets, we have full Gatling guns, and on this specific craft there are some custom turrets. These are the heavy hitters. These will be doing the most damage. That's why they're the most prominent on the dorsal and ventral side of the ship. These are what are going to be really hammering at the cruisers and what have you. A frigate versus a cruiser isn't going to end well for the frigate usually, because they are smaller, they're faster, and they have fewer guns. But in a fleet, they should be assisting bigger cruisers in doing damage to the big capital ships. Not worrying so much about fighters, but more going after the bigger targets. And also carrying quite a lot of supplies, and usually they're around 100-200 meters long, maybe more. So as you can see, the logistics frigate here has many thrusters. It is very nippy, because it's hydrogen as well. It also has a hangar, so frigates can carry ships. I mean, corvettes can carry fighters or what have you. There's nothing wrong with that. We have lots of interior turrets, so it can screen against fighters. Quite a lot of armour, especially towards the bow, so it can take a hit. And it has large turrets, like I just said, and these turrets are attached to welders, so they can be repaired mid-battle. So we're not doing a ship review, so we're not going to go. I just clicked the close button. So let's have a look in here. Right, yeah, so we can carry a fighter, but since this is a logistics frigate, it's probably a shuttle or a transport. And that's the thing, frigates aren't always war orientated, but that is more where they lean. The next ship is the IMDC Atlas. This is a very old ship actually. It's sort of reflected in the design. You can see how the design has changed over the years. Yeah, frigates should have a jump drive as well because they're long range ships. I'll just touch on sort of planetary capabilities. You shouldn't see frigates landing on planets too often because they should usually be carrying, you know, unless they're smaller frigates, of course, some shuttles or personal transport ships. But in general, they won't be landing on planets too much without a landing pad. So we have a hangar bay in the sort of tucked away in the belly of the beast here. And as you can see, again, we have Gatling guns, we have missile turrets, we have rocket launchers. This ship's supposed to have a gravity cannon at the front, a railgun, but that never came to be. It's quite big. I believe this is the biggest frigate we have. Yeah, this is the biggest frigate we have. But I'd still call this frigate. I'd still call this a frigate because it doesn't have a hangar. Well, it doesn't have a proper quick launch hangar, if you know. It's not a fighter hangar, basically, is what I'm trying to say. That's more reflected over here on the Panama class, where it's got landing pads, so you can launch the fighters straight into the battle. Doesn't really have that. It's not quite as it's big. It's a quite a long ship, but it's not very voluminous. Like, it doesn't have a lot of volume. A good comparison is the Cerberus, the battle cruiser. Now they look roughly the same length, but if you look at the sort of interior space, you'll see that the Cerberus has much more room. It also just has a lot more guns in general. It has quick, rapid fighter deployment systems on the ventral side there. And it's also to do with production and sustainability, because a cruiser has to sustain itself, because a cruiser can act on its own without a fleet. Frigates can do that, but they won't be as effective, and if they come across a capital ship, it usually isn't going to end very well. So, Panama class. This is, I believe this is the smallest frigate we've got here. Then again, it's still a frigate. If you look at its guns, it is large ship orientated. There aren't many interior turrets. Just a couple under the decoys and that for screening against missiles and fighters, of course, because it still will be shooting at them, but just that's not its role in a fleet. Frigate's a very loose, sort of loose classification, really. It applies to like a wide range of ships. Just don't get too bogged down in this is this, this is that. You know, the length, block count, PCU, all that. Weight is a stupid thing. Don't even bother with weight. But yeah, we've got forward missiles. We have a cockpit at the front. Wouldn't really call that a bridge. And yeah, it's still a frigate. It's still quite, you know, it's quite a big ship, but it's just barely a frigate. It's still a frigate though. Here we have, this is quite an interesting ship. This is the F-028. Not a fan of those names. And this, again, this is a frigate. This isn't as well armoured because it's more for looks, in my opinion. I'm not trying to critique the creator there, but ground down blocks and such and exposed components aren't going to do too well in a fight for obvious reasons. But it does have reinforcements with blast doors. It has a landing pad. It has capital grade weaponry, so it can deal damage to larger ships, and probably for quite a while as well, because it has blast door blocks incorporated as well. Here on the end, this is the Falchion. We have many interior turrets on this ship. Loads. This is a corvette. I mean, you can just look, like, if you look at the Panama and the Falchion side by side, you can clearly see that the Panama is a frigate. It could be a corvette, but you can tell straight away, you know, there's a difference there. It's just, frigates they just tend to have more guns, really. Some have production facilities, some have hangars, because they can be quite specialised. So you can have attack frigates, assault frigates. You can have, logistics frigates, you can have communications frigates, transport frigates. You can have a vast array of different classifications for the frigate. And they tend to be one of the most common ships as well, because they're very good for supporting cruisers, because they can help dealing damage. So say if it was two cruisers versus one cruiser along with 4 or 5 frigates, they would win because the frigates can outmaneuver the cruisers because they're more maneuverable. Smaller, they can orientate themselves quicker, and sometimes when a cruiser has forward weaponry like the rocket launchers here, usually you use them as you're coming into the battle. So as you're coming on your opponent, you just you fly past, and you just, if you've ever had a fight with anyone in large ships, you know that you tend to just drift around, sort of pointing at each other. That's quite difficult in a cruiser. So cruisers tend to go slow passes with broadsides, and then, well, either slow passes with broadsides, or they just sit very far apart and just poke at each other with fighters and that. Frigates can go around the back, they can come from underneath, they can sort of spread themselves out. They make a fleet very versatile, and for survival, they're just better than cruisers because they're smaller, they're easy to build. They can have production facilities. If it's just you in single player, then a frigate's all you need. You don't need a battle cruiser. So because you can't use it all. You can't use all 4 fighters and the cruiser. So that's just my 2 cents on frigates in Space Engineers. Next, I'll be covering cruisers because I'm working on one myself. So I've been doing quite a lot of, not reading, but research, if you will, on those particular types of ship. Don't get too bitey about them in the comments, because honestly, it doesn't matter. It's not like a be-all end-all ship classes. I'm just telling you my opinion on ships. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below on what you want to see next, what you think frigates should be in Space Engineers. And yeah, take care, everybody. Why are you still here? We're done. The video's over. I'm finished. Go. I'll see you next time. I'm not announcing anything.